Hey, what is going on everyone? It's me, Mr. Mario, and back over at the Xbox 360 here. This one is a hard modded one, as you can see, and for this here, I'm going to be covering something that I've actually kind of wanted to cover here for several years at this point. Now, I will say right off the bat here, if you're thinking that PS1 emulation is going to be perfect right off the rip, absolutely not. I'm going to say that. It's a impressive emulator for what it is, but I will say by 2025 standards, there are issues that you are going to run into here. Namely, FMV slowdown, and also the sound is just not going to be the best. Usually, from my experience, sound in-game was alright, albeit with some slowdowns at times, but usually with the FMVs, that wasn't going to be the best experience, and usually I end up trying to skip those if I could. But for something to just mess around with, or kind of just have some PS1 games on your hard-modded Xbox 360 for the fun of it, why not? Anyways, that's what this video is going to be about here. It's going to be showing you all how you can take a hard-modded Xbox 360, such as this, which is able to run homebrew, custom dashboards, and of course emulators, and run a PS1 emulator. The one we're going to be running here is going to be PCSXR-360. Now, I'll be covering everything in the video here, but for some prerequisites, first of all, you are going to need a hard-modded Xbox 360. That means it needs to be a JTAG, an RGH of some kind, something that is capable of running homebrew and unsigned code like this. You're also going to need a way of transferring files to and from the system, whether that's going to be FTP or a USB drive, and you can even play this off your USB drive. I'm going to be using a USB drive for this, and we're also going to need a computer on hand that will just make things easier in order to download and transfer over the files that we need to. The final thing you're also going to need is, of course, some PS1 games, and I'll show you how you can back those up as well too. So with all that being said here, let's go ahead and move over from the console over to our PC, and I'll show you what all you'll need to get started. Now, the very first thing we're going to need here is going to be the emulator, and I'm going to be referencing the console mods wiki and over at the emulators page for the Xbox 360 because, well, not only this is a great and reputable site, but it does have the download for the emulator that we're going to need, which was a little bit of a newer build than the one I was actually finding myself here. So for this, you're just going to need to come down to the list of emulators, and we're going to be looking for PCSX Reloaded. It'll be the PS1 emulator right here. You just need to click on this and save it somewhere you can easily find it. The next thing is not going to be a requirement. This is going to be strictly optional right here, but it's going to be if you want some covers for your PS1 games. Now, this is purely aesthetic, and you do not have to have the covers right here, but I'm going to have Cover Century linked down below in the description of this video here. In order to download a cover for a game, it's pretty simple. You just need to go to, let's say, D, for example. Wait for this to load up. Over here, let's say one of the games I'm wanting to play, which I'm not going to be doing this one here, but let's say I want to play Darkstone. You can grab the front cover right here, wait for that to load in, and then right here, of course, you can just right click, save image as, and then save it somewhere you can easily find it. I'll show you all what to do with those later on. The last thing we're going to need is something for our actual games here, and I'm going to be using Image Burn in order to back up my games I have from disk. Now, if you already have your own game backups, then that's fine. You don't need to cover this here. However, if you do have a PS1 game on disk and you have a disk drive here, I'll show you quickly how you can back that up. For Image Burn, you just need to download this executable, install it just like any other Windows program, and then you'll be good at that point. Alright, so to cover everything here, I do have the emulator downloaded. I also have some games and covers right here in my PS1 folder, and I also have Image Burn. Thankfully, it's pretty simple to do. You just need to have a disk drive connected to your computer, and you need to take your PS1 game and pop it into the disk drive. Then go ahead and launch Image Burn. When it pops up, it's going to look something like this. You just need to click on Create Image File from Disk and give it a few moments to spin up here. As you can see, it was able to find my copy of Nightmare Creatures 2. Now at this point, you just need to select where you want to save this, in which you can click on this folder icon right here. Then you can pick somewhere you want to save it. It's going to save as a bin queue by default, and that's going to be okay. However, for the file name here, if you want to make it look a little more aesthetically pleasing, because this is how it's going to look within the emulator, you can rename it to whatever you want to here. So I'll just name it like that, just so it looks a little nicer. Hit save, and then at this point we can now click on the read button. Now just give it a few moments to read the disk and back it up properly to your computer. Now thankfully I've already backed up this game as well as a few other games that I want to use for my demonstration on here, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel out of this. But if you do not want to cancel, of course you're just going to want to finish up the disk read. So now with any of our games backed up and ready to go, I'm going to go ahead and check this folder here, and as you can see, I have a few of my games already in folders, and I also have the accompanying cover art, which of course, as I said, this this here is optional. But with our game sorted, let's go ahead and work on the actual emulator itself, and I'll show you where you can put everything. You'll need to grab your PCSXR-360 archive, and if you don't have anything to extract out this file, I would recommend using something such as 7-zip. I'll have a link for it down below in the description, but you just need to download, install it, and then once it's installed, you can go ahead, right-click, and extract it out right here. Once extracted, you should get a PCSXR-360 folder, and inside of here, this is how it's all going to look. Now, once we have this folder extracted out, we can actually just move this over to our USB drive. So I'm going to close out of here, and let's go ahead, just right-click, cut this out. Go ahead, grab a USB drive if you're going to be using that, and it must be formatted to FAT32, of course, since it needs to be readable on the Xbox 360. Once that's all done, we can right-click and paste it in right here or wherever else works. Once it's all copied over, let's go ahead and get our games over here. So within the PCSXR folder, you're going to see a few folders right here, and you're going to go into the ROMs folder. This is where our games are going to exist. Now, I'll show you with this, when you copy over your games, they could be in folders like this, or they could even be the raw bin Q files like this here, whichever one works. In my opinion, what I do for cleanliness sake, just how it all looks within the UI, I prefer to take my single disc games and I right click, copy these out, go ahead and grab both the bin and Q files, and then you can paste them out into the ROMs directory. So there's Resident Evil copying out. I'm going to also go ahead and grab Nightmare Creatures 2. So I'm going to do the same thing, right click, copy, and paste this. And the only game I personally have an exception for is going to be Legend of Dragoon, because Legend of Dragoon, as you can see, is a 4-disc game. So instead of it looking like 4 games for me to choose from, I'm just going to keep it in one folder, and I'm going to right click, copy that out, and then paste it into the ROMs directory. Now, while that's all copying out, we can actually go back up one folder and we can go over to the covers directory, because this is where we're going to put our covers. And this step, as I said, is strictly optional. But if you want to make your games look a little more aesthetically pleasing, you can follow along with this. Now, from my experience here, JPEGs such as this are going to work just fine for what we're doing. However, they must be named properly. And what I mean by that is the name of the actual JPEG itself must contain the full file name of the game itself, the actual game data or game image that you're going to be pulling from. So for example here, just to correct these, I'm going to go into my ROMs directory, and for Resident Evil, you're going to want to right click, rename this, and you're going to want to highlight everything, including the extension. And if you cannot see that, if you're within Windows, click on View, Show, and make sure File Name Extensions is enabled. But either way, we can go ahead and highlight all of the Resident Evil.bin file name, right click, copy out the file name itself, and then go back over to your images, and since mine is Resident Evil, I'm going to right click, rename this, and I'm going to now paste that in, so it should look like Resident Evil.bin.jpg. It should look something like that. I'm going to do the exact same thing with Nightmare Creatures 2, and it must be the bin file, not the Q file. If you're working with ISOs, they need to be the ISO file. So there, we got that copied out, and we're going to paste that in. Now, the difference is going to be for Legend of Dragoon, because like I said, this is a 4-disc game. So when you come in here, you have 4 bin files you're going to be working from. At this point, if you still want to make it look nice, essentially you have to have a different cover for every single disc. So with this here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to highlight all of this, copy that out. So I got disc1.bin. I'm going to go over to my Legend of Dragoon, rename it like so, and disc 1 is sorted, but discs 2, 3, and 4 have not been created. So there's a really easy way to fix that up here. Just copy this out, and then all you need to do is paste it again, and we're going to paste it one more time because why not? And then at this point here, I'm going to be renaming these. So that's going to be disc 2, this is going to be disc 3, and the last one here is of course going to be disc 4. So at this point now, every single disc and every single game I have on here is going to have an accompanying cover. And once you have your covers all sorted out, oh, I need to rename this one properly. Once you have your covers all sorted out, you just need to highlight all of them, right click, copy them out. Now within your actual emulator directory, you need to go to the covers folder, right click, and paste the covers. So there you go. At this point, your covers are sorted out, your actual ROM files are sorted out, and you have your emulator set up right here. At this point now, since this is on the USB drive, I'm going to come back out here, right click, eject, and go back over to my Xbox. So now that we're back over at the Xbox, I went ahead and plugged in my USB drive, and once this has been plugged in, now here's the thing, you can always make this decision later on, but you could either play your emulator off the USB drive, or you can play it off of the internal drive once you transfer it over. It's up to you, but at least to get into the emulator itself, we're going to go to our USB drive, PCSXR, go over to the default executable, and load that up. Now, as you can see, this is what we're looking at here. You see my Legend of Dragoon is set up in that folder, but I have my Nightmare Creatures 2 as well as Resident Evil here. So if you want to change the cover mode, you can tap the X button, and it should look a little something like this. And of course, if you go into Legend of Dragoon, check it out here, I end up having a cover for every single one, which, you know, they're all going to be the same here. Now, if you'd like to set up a game profile per game, you can go ahead and hover over and highlight a game, tap the Y button, and from here you can change your options with whatever you might see fit on here. This is definitely good to bring up just because there's going to be a few specific game fixes like Star Wars Dark Forces, Parasite Eve 2, Crash Team Racing, just a few things like that. And if you want to play with something else such as using dynamic recompiler or using a linear filter, that's going to be up to you. Now let's go ahead and fire up one of these games. For my example here, I'm going to be firing up Nightmare Creatures 2 because, well, this is actually a game I used to play on my system this way. So you just need to highlight the game, tap the A button, and wait a few moments for this to load up. It is going to cut to a black screen like this, but just give it some time to load up your game image. Now do keep in mind the PS1 was not a powerhouse in terms of getting 60 frames per second on every single game, but you could see here, for example, just when it comes to FMV playback on the emulator itself, it's not going to be the best, and the sound kind of accompanies that as well too, unfortunately. But if we skip that sequence, I've noticed normally once it's in-game, the emulator does perform better than trying to play back FMV sequences. So we are able to actually get in game here. You can see adjust the options. Yeah, all that's fine. Go out here. You know, I'll go into the therapy section, why not? So as you can see right here, we are actually in game and it is playable, so thankfully the PS1 emulator is working as expected. Now, as I said, when it comes to performance, you're not really going to be getting the best performance on this, mind you, but if this is just something where you already have your RGH, you have some extra storage space, and you want to put a few of your favorite PS1 games on there just to mess around with, that's what it's pretty nice for in at least 2025 and beyond. But don't get it twisted, if you are wanting to play PS1 games, there are much better ways of doing it now, and of course, if you want to stay on the same generation, the PS3 generally tends to be a better PS1 emulation machine. So that's what you can stick with. However, on here, I do also want to show you all a menu that you can access in-game. So if you want to change any of these settings here, and it's not going to be the most verbose, what you can do is on your controller, hold down LB, RB, A, Y, B, and X all at the same time. And when you do that, you're going to see quite literally a PS1 will pop up on screen, and you have a few options here. So the first one here is the reset button, which exits you out of the game. You also have the eject button, which is good for disk swapping. You can create a save state, you can load up a save state, you can reset the game itself. There is a game guide here, which I can only think this would be like an accompanying like info text file that you can combine, but that's not anything I'm covering, at least in this video here. We can go ahead and hit back, but if you go over to filter, you can come over here and there's a lot of different filters you can check out here. So if you want to, for example, just like one of the basic ones, if you want to run scan lines, for example, you might see here, let's go ahead X'd out of that. I'm not sure how much of a difference you all can tell, because not only this is through a streamed video, but at the same time, this is just a darker game, but there are scan lines now on this game itself. You can go back in here yet again, and if you want to disable that, you can go all the way to the bottom, load up stock, and that ends up, well, clearing out the screen itself. So now if you want to actually exit, we can press the B button, and now we can come back to the PS1 itself, tap the A button on the reset button on the console, and as you can see, it brings us back here. So let's go ahead, exit out of this, and let's go back over to our ROMs directory. Now for one last setting I'd like to show you all within the emulator itself, I'm going to be showing you all how you can swap discs, because one thing with PS1 games, just like Legend of Dragoon, is that many of them and many of the great ones came on multiple discs. So for this here, I'm going to load up disc 3 on purpose. I have a save here right at the beginning, so this should ask me for disc 1, but I'm going to go to continue. Now once it loads up here, we can go ahead and load up our game save, and this can work whether you're loading up a save or if you're going to be swapping in game. But once that's loaded up, let's see, there we go, and it should bring up a message here. There we go, please insert disc 1. So if you get to a message like this, you need to press, like I said before, left bumper, right bumper, A, Y, B, and X all at the same time. And once you do that, your PS1 is quite literally going to show up. You need to navigate over to the eject button on the PS1, tap the A button, and now this menu is going to come up. And from here, you can go over to your game itself and load up the appropriate disc. For me, I'm going to be loading up disc 1, so tap A. Now that menu is going to go away. We should wait a few seconds here. And there we go, it now says please wait. It should fade to black. And I'm not cutting any of this, by the way, just so you all can see about how long this might take if you're actually doing a disc swap. So here we go, it took a little bit longer, but that's okay. And there we go. As you can see, we are in game. This is my previous save that's been loaded up. And like I said, I was able to show you all a disc swap on here, so that is possible. So if you're getting far enough into a game where you need to swap discs, don't worry. Thankfully, at least this emulator does have you covered. Now, the very last thing I'd like to show you all is some people might be thinking, great, I can play this off my USB drive, but I'd rather just have it within Aurora on my internal drive. And for that, easy enough, I'll show you how to do that. You just need to open up your file manager, which you can open up by pressing the back button. You need to go over to your USB drive, go over to PCSXR-360, and you can rename this folder if you want to, but really you just need to highlight it, navigate over to the left, tap the A button here on copy, then tap the right bumper, so you go over to your system, and within your hard drive 1 or whichever media you are using. Since this is an emulator, it would be good to create an emulators folder, which you just need to come up here, tap new directory, and then you can just name this emulators or emulator or emus, whatever you want to on here. And once you're in the emulators folder, you can highlight that, navigate over here, and go ahead, hit paste, and it should copy everything over from your USB drive. As you can see, I've already transferred that over. If it's still not showing up, do keep in mind, you might have to press the start button here in Aurora, go down to content, and there's two things you need to do. The first thing you need to do is you need to add a path if you haven't added one already. Now, as you can see, I've already added one for emulators, but if you have not added one of those, you need to go to add, go to change for your path, go to hard drive 1, go ahead, highlight your emulators folder, tap the Y button on here. The scan depth of 2 is fine, and if you want to change your script data, you can as well. You don't have to though, and then you can hit the save button on this. Then once that's saved, you can go ahead and hit A on scan now, let it scan in, and after a few moments, it should populate within your cover flow just like this. So from here, you can tap the Y button, check this all out right here. You could even change the cover art if you want to. If you don't like this one, you can download another one as long as you're connected online. I'm okay with the default one, but as you can see here, at this point, you can now just go ahead, launch it directly on Aurora, and there you go. So that's about it for this video here. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, hopefully it helped out, and if you did like it, a like would absolutely be appreciated. If you didn't like it, a dislike is fine as well too. But you know, this is just one of those things where this is not new by any means, but I've been asked to cover it a surprising amount of time over the years, and even though, again, I will say at the end here, this is not the best way to play PS1 games, it is at least a little extra something you can do on your RGH 360. Anyways, for real, that is about it for this video here. Hopefully this is able to help you all out, hopefully you all enjoyed it, but as I always say, this is Mr. Mario, signing off. Thank you all for watching, everyone.